On November 18, 1978, a tragedy unfolded deep in the jungles of Guyana that would go down in history as one of the most chilling examples of mass psychological manipulation. Over 900 men, women, and children lost their lives in what would become known as the Jonestown Massacre, a mass suicide and murder orchestrated by the enigmatic and terrifying figure of Jim Jones. The world watched in horror as images of bodies scattered across the ground surfaced, revealing the extent of the psychological grip Jones had on his followers. But what led to this catastrophic event? How did one man convince hundreds of individuals to willingly take their own lives or stand by as their loved ones perished? The answers lie in a complex web of psychological manipulation, social conditioning, and absolute control. Understanding the psychological mechanisms behind Jonestown is not just a study of the past. It is a crucial lesson in recognizing the warning signs of coercive persuasion and totalitarian control. This article delves into the psychological forces at play, unraveling the mind of Jim Jones and the vulnerability of those he ensnared in his lethal ideology. Jones's ability to manipulate and control others was deeply rooted in his upbringing and early experiences. Born in 1931 in Crete, Indiana, he grew up in a household marked by poverty and an absent father, who was a World War I veteran suffering from the effects of mustard gas exposure. His mother, Lynetta Jones, was an independent and nonconformist woman who instilled in him a sense of destiny, often telling him he was special and meant for greatness. From an early age, Jones displayed an unusual fascination with power and control. Childhood acquaintances recalled how he would conduct mock religious ceremonies, even presiding over funerals for dead animals in his neighborhood. His obsession with religion and social justice merged in his early adulthood when he became involved with Pentecostal churches, known for their emotional services and strong communal bonds. This experience laid the foundation for his own ministry, where he would use religious fervor to manipulate and control his followers. As Jones's church grew, so did his need for control. He was not content with merely preaching. He needed absolute devotion. He began fabricating faith healings, staging elaborate performances where supposedly sick or disabled congregants were miraculously cured. These acts reinforced his followers' belief that he possessed supernatural abilities, further entrenching their loyalty. It was the perfect manipulation, prey on desperation and promise salvation. The ability of Jones to convince his followers to adopt his worldview was built upon several key psychological principles. One of the most significant being social proof. When people find themselves in unfamiliar or stressful situations, they look to those around them for cues on how to behave. This effect is amplified in tight-knit communities, where individuals derive a sense of identity and belonging from the group. Jones exploited this by fostering an environment where dissent was not just discouraged, but actively punished. Newcomers to the People's Temple quickly learned that expressing doubt or independent thought was met with harsh consequences: public humiliation, forced labor, and even physical punishment. Over time, the fear of being ostracized or punished kept members in line, ensuring their compliance with Jones's increasingly radical directives. Jones also used sleep deprivation and constant communal living to break down individual autonomy. The members of the People's Temple were constantly subjected to long hours of labor, relentless sermons, and staged emergencies that kept them in a perpetual state of anxiety. When a person is exhausted and isolated from external influences, their ability to think critically is significantly weakened. In this state, they become highly susceptible to suggestion, a psychological principle that Jones leveraged masterfully. By the time Congressman Leo Ryan arrived at Jonestown in November 1978, the settlement was already a pressure cooker of paranoia and desperation. Jones had long warned his followers that they were under constant threat from the outside world. Government forces, defectors, and the media were all enemies plotting their destruction. This paranoia reached a fever pitch when Ryan attempted to escort defectors out of the compound, prompting Jones to declare that their utopia was about to be destroyed. In the final moments, Jones presented his followers with a false dichotomy: die by their own hands peacefully, or be tortured and slaughtered by external forces. The concept of the illusion of choice played a critical role here. Under normal circumstances, suicide is seen as a final act of desperation. But within the psychological framework that Jones had carefully constructed, it became an act of defiance, a way to preserve the community rather than let it fall into enemy hands. This manipulation of perceived agency ensured that many followers complied, even if they did so with hesitation and terror in their eyes. Jones also used peer pressure to enforce compliance. His most loyal followers, often those in positions of power within the temple, ensured that anyone who resisted was forcibly injected with poison or shot. Mothers were forced to administer cyanide to their children before taking it themselves. In this horrific scenario, resistance was not only futile, it was deadly. The Jonestown Massacre was more than a tragedy. It was a harrowing case study in the mechanisms of psychological control and social coercion. Survivors who managed to escape recounted harrowing tales of abuse, fear, and isolation. Many were left with lasting psychological trauma, haunted by the realization that they had been manipulated into participating in their own oppression. For psychologists and sociologists, Jonestown became a grim example of how totalitarian control can develop even in seemingly well-intentioned communities. The same psychological forces that enabled the massacre, fear, social conformity, and blind obedience, can be observed in other historical tragedies, from totalitarian regimes to destructive cults. Additionally, the event sparked debates about the role of government intervention in cults. Should authorities have acted sooner? Could the tragedy have been prevented? The reluctance to interfere in religious movements has since been re-examined, leading to increased awareness of cult dynamics and preventative measures against similar events in the future. The story of Jonestown is not just about a single event in history. It is a warning about the dangers of unchecked authority and blind obedience. Jim Jones did not simply exploit his followers. He constructed an entire system designed to break their autonomy and reshape their perception of reality. Even today, echoes of Jonestown can be seen in modern-day cults, extremist groups, and authoritarian regimes. The psychological principles at play remain the same, and so does the importance of recognizing the warning signs before tragedy strikes. Understanding how and why Jonestown happened is not merely an exercise in historical analysis. It is a crucial step in ensuring that history does not repeat itself. Jonestown may have perished in the jungles of Guyana, but its lessons live on. It serves as a stark reminder that the most dangerous cults do not begin with mass suicides. They begin with promises of salvation, spoken by leaders who demand unwavering loyalty. And if history has taught us anything, it is that such promises often come at the highest cost imaginable.